everyone, and welcome to my Python programming tutorial. In this video, we will talk about math functions, software development life cycle with an example to see how that example is evaluated, what we have studied in the software development life cycle. So let's get started. I will share my screen, jump back and forth with our PyCharm and PowerPoint slides. So functions and modules. So right now we are using built-in functions in Python. So Python has already done like most of your work so far. So you just have to call that function and use it. So you don't have to rewrite those functions until and unless you want to make some modifications or you don't like the functions already built in Python. So what are functions and modules? So Python include many useful functions which are organized in libraries. So you need to know the code, and you just want to know like where those functions are related or allocated, like in what is the name, how you can use them. So function is a chunk of code which is already written. Now, when you are using built-in functions, you need to call them. So that's the part, the calling part. When you are writing your own functions, which we will do in upcoming chapters, but right now we are using the built-in functions. You need to make a call for those functions, and how you make a call by importing it. You will see number of methods right now, how we will make a call and what are the things available in those functions. So functions are required arguments or parameters. Arguments may be optional or required depending on the functions. Parameters and arguments are the values you provide. So for example, I'm using a square root function. SQRT is the notation over here. That function, you cannot just say, hey, SQRT, just chop in. And you need to provide the value, what value of square root you're looking for. So for example, if I say SQRT of 4, SQRT of 5, that 5 or 4, whatever the number I'm providing is the parameter. That's like an input to the function. Sometimes some functions don't require any parameter. For example, I say value of pi. So I don't need to provide any value, like what's the value of pi. It will automatically return. So there you don't have any parameters. So that's why it's optional or required depending on the functions. When you make a call, you get a return. Every time whenever you make a call to the function, you will get a return. This is like a return value that may be an answer to your question, that may be the value you are looking for. Okay, so let's take a look at the math library we have in Python. This is, you can do in PyCharm as well. You can also do in your idle or your command prompt. So you can see what math function you have. Basically, like most of the functions, every function you're looking for in math class, you will be finding over here. So you will say import math. Import means why we are using import, because you are using Python built-in functions which are in the import library. Okay, so that's why we need to write the import at the top, like before starting your code, like as you start your code in the main screen, before printing anything, you will write import at the top. So for example, in like after 5 years, you want to take a look what functions are imported there at the top. You can see what libraries are imported in this Python. There are tons of other libraries as well, random, and you will see like in the future, so that you know this program is using some library of Python. As you can see, you can say math.py. So you have to write math.py, and there is an option where you don't have to write. I will show you. To use the resource, you write the name, which is the library name, which is math. Dot is the representation that I'm about to call a function. So pi is the function. As you can see there, you just write pi and it automatically gives you the return value. But as you can see, the other example, math.sqrt required some value, which is 2. Pi doesn't require any value. So this is the difference of optional and required parameters. And these are parameters, like this 2 is a parameter. So what math module does, you can avoid, there are multiple ways to use that math library in Python. You can avoid the use of qualifier with each reference by importing the individual resources. You can say, I only want the square root of this from the math library. I don't want to use any other function. As you can see the chart, there are tons of functions. Or you can say, I only want the pi, or I only want to use this. So you can just individually say, like at the top, from math, from means from the math library, import only pi, or comma sqrt, or comma exponentiation, or comma like round float, seal, like all those functions you have in your math library. And then when you say print, you just use those names. You don't have to say math dot, just like you did in the previous one. So this is another way. Whatever way works for you, go for it. There is no requirement that you have to stick to some, like, the required way or anything. So you may import, the star means everything from that math. So you can say from math import star. It means every that in the data directory, every function you have, import. So you don't have to write these individual names. It depends, always depends on the function or the person you are working with. Okay. So this is the next case study. We will do income tax calculator, which is our example for today. Before that, let's jump onto PyCharm and test some of our math functions just to get warm up before jumping onto this task. Okay, let's test math and see if our math functions are working or not. So we have, first, let's say import math, nothing else. And then I will say print. I will use square root SQ. If I say SQRT, and as we all know, for square root, you need to give a value. What square root? With PyCharm, see, there's an error in your code. This red lines, underline means there is an error, and it says unresolved reference SQRT. So my statement is looking for a reference. Remember, there are multiple ways. So if you're sticking to the way, you need to understand, don't try to mix all the ways, because you may get errors like this. So when you are using just math import, what you have to do is you have to say math dot sqrt. So when you say math dot, you can see all the functions. So see, these are all the functions: mod, square, power, log. You can even if you're in any of the math classes, you can create your own code for a quick math solution. So math.sqrt, and now the error is gone. If I run the code, as you can see, this is the answer, 2.44. And there is also a way to avoid this rest of the values, which we will see. But right now our focus is on math. So if you don't want to write math dot, so remember, there was a way. What you will do is from math. As you can see, as I write from, there are other libraries which I can see from where, and these are all the libraries built in file functions, in random, you will see mail, my program, and even you can also, as you can see, these are all my files like previous code. I can also use those files as well. As you can see, they are named my program over here. So I can import my files as well, which you will see in the future, definitely. So how we are doing and or importing our own previous code into a new code. So from math, now what do you want from math? I want, let's stick to our square root, like the basic one. From math, import my sqrt. Yeah. If you just write one symbol and you don't remember, was it srqt or sqrt, strq, like you just write S and it will show you an option. And now there's an error on math dot that you're not supposed to write math dot, because as you're already importing math dot sqrt, you just write sqrt and the number, and you run your code, and boom, there's the answer. And the answer is obviously is the same. It's just how functionality you think is work. So for example, if you are continuously working on some math function, your code is all about the calculation and moving, jumping around with the power function or the sqrt, you can just say sqrt comma, if I write, I don't remember power, honestly. So POW, as I wrote P, I know that it starts with P. I can say POW, I can see it's the power one. So I can say power. And then next time what I can say is print, I will say power of 4. So let's see what it does. Run, and there is an error, which I was expecting. Because when you take power, so you have base and exponent, right? So you have two numbers. So power expected 2 arguments, and you got 1. See, you have to read the error, understand the error, and then try to fix it. So power 4 comma, let's say 7, you need to the power. So power needs 2 arguments. Arguments parameter is the same name. So these are the values. So remember, this is required. So that was required. So that's why it was giving you an error that you cannot have, you cannot sum. Okay, so there is one thing. This function sqrt requires one argument, one parameter, which is required. If you don't write 6, it will give you an error. Now when it comes to power, it requires 2 arguments, right? uh, I just gave one and it threw an error. It didn't work. And same, let's comma p again for pi. I don't remember what was the notation, so I just wrote p and it says it's pi. And let's print. It's my previous print copied. So print, just write pi, and I don't have to pass any value for pi to know what's the value of pi. And here you are. So you have seen 3 functionalities of this of a function or method calling or number of parameters. One function required 1 number, one function required 2 numbers, one function don't require anything. So this is, it depends. Even if you are writing your own functions, depending on your function, for example, you are writing a function to add 2 numbers, your code requires 2 numbers. So user just cannot say add. User need to pass 2 numbers, right? It's up to you. You have to set the values or and the stuff. So now let's jump into, I think we have covered what we have seen in our PowerPoint slide. We have covered everything. So in idle, I will say import math, enter, and now our function was dir math, enter. These are all the functions of math. As you can see, factorial, you can see, or you can recognize, and if you're in your math class, or if you're taking differential equation or any linear algebra high level math class, you may see some other math function which maybe you use in those classes. You may see some functions which are in your basic algebra class. Whatever you need, tan function, sine, cos, radian, anything you want, you can work, you can create your own code, and you can check that these functions exist, but you can always use over here all these functions. Okay, that's it. Now let's jump to our case study and see what we have to do is income tax calculator. Right now, everyone is talking about income tax. We have to calculate the income tax. So it's not that easy. They have also mentioned if it only could be done as easily as suggested in this case study. So we will do the basic income tax just to see how what we have learned so far to capture everything in this example. Okay. So we begin with the request, a program that compute a person income tax. So there is a customer who approached to you. So we will jump back to our software development lifecycle and see like how those things work. So compute a person income tax. Now this is your case study. Program format and structure. Start with the comments, author's name, purpose of program, and other relevant information in a docstring file. Then include statements, import any module needed by program, initialize important variables suitably commented so that you need, after 5 years, 10 years, you know why you created those variables. Prompt the user for input data and save the input data in variables. So it means wherever you are taking the input, create variables according to those inputs, and then process the input to produce the result and display the result. We will jump back to this slide when we are jumping onto coding. Let's take a look. First of all, first step of case study is analysis. So what you have to do the analysis. So your task is calculate income tax of a person. Now, to calculate an income tax, what are the things you need? All taxpayers are charged a flat rate tax rate of 20%. So there is a tax rate 20% we have to charge. Taxpayers are allowed 10,000 standard deduction. For each dependent, taxpayer is allowed additional 3,000 deduction. Gross income must be entered to nearest penny, and income tax is expressed as decimal number. Okay, so now this is your analysis. As you can see, enter the gross income. It means this is the value we need from user. We will ask user to enter the gross income. We will ask user, we don't know how many dependents user have. We will ask enter the number of dependents, right? And the income tax is this. This is our output statement. So the input statement we have is 2. We are asking income and the number of dependents. Now what we have is flat rate of 20%. We know that we have to charge whatever the income user entered, we have to charge 20%, which as a tax. Then taxpayer are allowed 10% of standard deduction, which we will put as a variable. Then and that's it, right? So this is our analysis, like how to calculate tax, what are the things we need to calculate the tax. This comes in your analysis part. Next part is your design. The design part is writing the pseudocode, like writing in a programming, not in a programming language, English-like language. Like first I will do this, first I will do that. Uh, any event you do, like any planning you do, you write the steps. There are steps. Even if you make a cup of tea, there is a step to make how to make a cup of tea, right? You will write step. If I ask you, hey, can you tell me how to make cookies, or how to make, I need a recipe, you write step by step, right? How to make cookies or how to make any dish so far. Same as with coding, you write the design, you write pseudocode. So just read pseudocode what we have. Input the gross income and number of dependents. So that's the first step we need to do. Like we need income, we need to ask user, because without these two information, we cannot do the calculation and we cannot print the output. We need those two things. After taking those two things, what we have is we have created our formula, taxable income. So first of all, whatever the gross income user has entered, we will do a negative 10,000, which was, if you remember from our previous slide, it says standard deduction. We can do a standard deduction of 10,000. And then after that, what we have is, and according to number of dependents, we don't know how many dependents are there. So what we do is, we know per dependent is 3,000. We will do a multiplication of number of dependent, whatever user said, 3 dependents, 2 dependents, we will do multiplication with 3,000 number of dependents and do a subtraction on our taxable income. At the end, you need 20% tax as well. Compute the income tax using the formula. This is how you calculate the tax. You do whatever this is calculated, whatever the answer is, you do times 0.20. It means 20%, and this is how you do in programming. This is how you calculate the 20% tax, and then you are print the text, you are printing whatever this variable hold. So take a look at your design phase. You have a lot of information in your design phase. You know the variables, inputs, and the display part. Okay, so now is the coding part. Now we have to jump on to the coding. So let's take a look what we have. This is a basic idea, implementation. Now, whatever you have done in your design, implement in your pie chart. So as you can see, it started with the doc string. Now let's jump back to our first format. The format of your, I would say, as a good programmer, what is your format? Because you're working for a customer. So your customer, as he looks at your code, he must understand, but though customer don't want to, but the owner of customer, because he is kind of an owner of other customers, he will be using this software for. Start with comments, author name, purpose of this program, and what your program does. Anything you want to write, anything you want to explain, you can write at the start, at the top header in comments. And then it says in doc strings, it means multi-line comments. You don't have to use multiple hashtag. Doc string will be more benefit for this kind of situation, or at the top header part. Then include statement that import any modules needed, which will be at the top if you are importing anything. Initialize important variables suitably commented, so that it knows like what this variable does. For example, if you're writing 20% of text deduction into a variable, hashtag it where that this is a 20% text deduction, so that user know why this value is deducted, why that variable is over there. So let's take a look, and we will jump on to one by one, open Python, and we will start working on it. So with the doc string, okay, so this is my doc string. I will explain some couple of basic information what I'm doing in this code, what this code does. So I will say program name is calculator, and author of this program, I will write my name. Do is what this program does, just like write 1 or 2 lines if you don't want to write that much of information, because income tax calculator, my title already give you know, most of the information so far. So so remove just extra spaces if you have any. After closing your doc string, from here actual coding starts. Okay, so don't forget your basic steps, what you have to start with. And we have completed the first thing. We need income tax from user, not income tax, sorry, that's what we are calculating. We need income, gross income from user, and number of dependents. And we have 2 variables as well. What they are doing so far, we know the tax rate. So I'm creating them as constant. because you cannot change the tax rate. So that's why it's constant. So it will be all capital, sorry, rate, like this, all capital equals to, and what is the tax rate? It's 20%. And how you are denoting that 20%? It's 0.220. Enter. These are my constants, so they are at the top. I'm not importing anything right now. We will see, and we will chop in like if we need any import function, math function so far. Okay, then we have standard deduction. Don't put spaces with your constant or variables to separate two values. I'm using underscore. Standard deduction was 10,000. It as a decimal because we know our answer will be in float. It will be in decimal. And the third thing, we have a dependent deduction. Okay, as I'm writing D or E and it's showing drop down menu, don't select anything from that because these are the variables you are creating. It doesn't exist in your Python library. Okay, so from now you have to take input from user. I'm just following the step which is already given, or it's like, you know, the bold thing. I'm not jumping into the formula. I'm not calculating. It's just the input part right now, which I'm providing to my code. So this is also input because these are the value I'm giving to my code. Now, what you have to do is you have to take gross income and number of dependent from user. So let's take a look. It's not a constant. So turn off your caps lock and normal variable underscore, so that, and see, I'm making my variable names readable so that in future I can read like what this value is, what this value is about. I do have to make comments as well. Gross income, how you take income is with the input function, and don't forget to typecast because we have to apply some calculation over here. So you need the typecasting part, and we'll see how we are typecasting and what we will typecast. First, just write input as a string. So you will typecast as a float because income will be in float. Put everything you have inside of parentheses, like the whole statement goes, like starting with input goes inside of your parentheses. So it will typecast at float and assign it to your gross income. The next thing we want from user is number. So for this input, what do you think will be the data type to typecast? It will not be float, right? You can, no one can say I have 3.2 dependents, right? There is no 3.2. So your this variable will be of integer type. So first let's write enter. You will write int that I want this whole thing to be typecasted as integer because I need the number, not the string. Okay, this is the information, first 3 lines until all the other 2 lines. We got it from our question because in our question it was stated, take the gross income, take number of dependents and calculate tax. So we don't know the gross income, we don't know number of dependents because our code will work for every income and every number of dependents. You cannot make it default by just setting the values. But these 3 values, that income tax rate is same for every person, standard deduction rate is same for every person, and the dependent deduction rate is same for every person. So if it's same for every person, you can make it as constant, that so that no one can change. No one can say, no, I will pay 15% of the tax. No, I will get 5,000 from my dependent deduction. No, you cannot say that. It's same for every person to calculate the tax. Now we have all this information. Now you have to calculate taxable income and then income tax. So first of all, let's create one more variable, taxable income, and how we calculate it equals to, now here you will apply some function, some operation. What you have to do is how you calculate it. So how you are calculating is, whatever you're doing is, you're taking your gross income. So I'm just copying my variables because they're too big. I don't want to make any mistakes. Control V. So first of all, taxable income. First, remove the deduction, apply, like we have to remove standard deduction of 10,000, and we have to remove number of dependents from our taxable income, and then we will apply the income tax. So gross income minus, you have to say minus that we are removing. What we are removing, first of all, remove standard deduction of 10,000, which everyone gets over here. Control V, remove standard deduction, then minus, what else we have to minus is, we have to minus dependent deduction. and how we are not just, it's not constant, right? Control C. I will put it inside of the parentheses. Reason because this is, let me show you, dependent deduction 3000 depending on number of dependents user have. So it will be, I don't know how many number of dependent user have. So control C, I will say dependent deduction times control V, number of dependent, whatever the answer user has given, that I have 5 dependents, 1 dependent, 2, it will do the multiplication of with 3000, our standard number we have provided, and it will remove and subtract from our total gross income and give the value to taxable income. So after deducting all these figures, the value left is our taxable income. That it means that's the extra money you have, and now you have to pay tax, 20% tax on that income, which is this one, taxable income. And now where is the tax rate, which is over here, and how you calculate, you say, now you will create one more variable which is more readable, income tax. How you calculate the tax, now you will say taxable, I'm copying my variable name because they're readable but they're too big, so not to make any mistakes. So taxable income times, and at the end we will print, and we will test our code as well. This is at that point we are doing the coding, implementing our software development lifecycle. We are doing the implementation. So print, first of all, you want your answer to be so that it's readable what you are printing, what you are doing so far. So the dollar symbol, then I'll put a concatenation, and then I will typecast my answer so that, remember from my previous video where you have to, because this is a floating number, right? Income tax, copy it. And you will typecast it as a string to concatenate with this string. Otherwise, it will give you an error. So income tax, now run your code and enter your gross income. Now it means your code runs. There are no errors. You are done with the implementation part. Now the next step of software is the testing part. So you need to test your code with different values, so that you need to check whether it works for every value or every number of dependents, every different type of gross income or not. So let's say gross income is 10,000. You can use your calculators to test and see if all the formulas are working and if the answer is correct. Okay, so that's it for this video. Thank you. Bye-bye.